Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today, we got Brandon.
Hello.
We're here talking about games and things.
Games and things.
I already lost where this episode is. Let's see. What do we got this week? Oh, you played Astro's Playroom and Call of Duty Black Ops. I got Famicom Detective Club. So I finished up MEO because that officially released this week. So there's that. I did get to play the Epic Mickey demo as well. So both things are there. And we got news. You ready to get into it?
Absolutely.
All right. Where are you mentally? Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
That's fine. All right. So Famicom Detective Club, I'll start up there because that was a new release last week. So what is it? MEO, The Smiling Man, is what the subtitle's called. So officially released this last week. So this is the first, new release for Famicom Detective Club since the 80s, aside from the remakes that we got a couple of years ago. So this is pretty exciting. Actually, I think that they did a really good job with this version of the game. I would say, in terms of progress compared to the other two, I didn't seem to have hiccups like I did before. It seems to progress a lot smoother. The means and what you need to kind of piece together to progress through a bit more straightforward. Not a lot of the original game had like a lot of sticking points where you would kind of be stuck with like a couple different locations and a couple different threads and like all these different options to kind of progress forward, but sometimes it wasn't always clear what you needed to kind of focus on. This is much better with that, is what I'm trying to say. So that's really good. Story is excellent. We talked last week about, I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and regardless, recently, that this may be kind of one of the more M-rated games that Nintendo's been involved with. Definitely agree. It does look like it wasn't necessarily fully developed in-house, so you can't be like, this is the most M-rated first-party game, because it's not, but there's a lot of key Nintendo people in there. But I would definitely say, I was thinking about it last night, definitely the most M-rated Nintendo franchise that they've ever put out. Which, I mean, really, not a high bar, because it's not like they have a lot of internal M-rated franchises. But yeah, this has some really dark undertones, like really dark undertones. And even, I would say, some things that ended up being innocuous story-wise, they play them really well that make you start to question even some things that might not have necessarily been troubling, but you start to, I found I was like making assumptions about really horrible things that weren't necessarily happening, but I think that's what the game was intending to do, starting to make you kind of question some of the other characters in the game and, draw on some of the darker themes that are there. In terms of dark themes, this game definitely touches on a lot of them. And also another thing for the Famicom Detective Clubs too, which I think is kind of an important distinction with some of these kind of more like detective or law games. Like this is kind of more centered in reality. It's not like supernatural. So they're talking about kind of dark storylines that could theoretically happen. Like there's nothing unrealistic that's there that's necessarily stopping you.
Okay.
So there's that, but it touches on all sorts of things like murder, suicide, kind of like rapey kind of things. Like there's
Oh my.
Yeah, there's all sorts of kind of questionable like topics that are there. I think it's all really well done. I think it's done very well. I really enjoyed the story from beginning to end. There was one reviewer. I should asterisk. It was a review for this game. I believe it was a professional review, but it could have been like, someone's comment, like a user review. But when I was looking up something that kind of anecdotally came up in my Google search, and it was like, there's so many questions left at the end of this game. No, there's not. I do not know what this person did. They didn't. So what happens is when you beat the game, everything kind of wraps up nicely initially, but there is an epilogue that's unlocked once you finish watching the credits. I assume that this person turned it off before the credits were finished, because the epilogue chapter literally explains everything. I do not think there's a single unanswered question, and definitely not lots of them after the epilogue chapter. It really kind of sums up everything really nicely and it basically is kind of like a retelling of the story, almost through the perspective of like, kind of the antagonist. So, yeah, you really have a good grasp on kind of what happened and why, and how things kind of spiraled out of control, for what's going on. I do think that this story, surprisingly, maybe there is twists and turns here in this story, but surprisingly, maybe more straightforward than the other ones. But also not necessarily so much so that you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely what's going on. Like they keep things close to their chest, and things are definitely shifting around a lot more than you would expect them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there is some nuance there that's interesting. Um, but yeah, no, I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a very nice um, text adventure, kind of story, or I don't know what kind of to qualify it as, just adventure. I'm not sure. Um, but I did really enjoy it. I don't think there's anything there that I think it would take away from it. Aside from, there is some more room for maybe some more interaction there. They did try some new things with this one compared to the last ones. More things like you have a notebook that kind of classifies out things a little bit better, makes things clear, and sometimes it will have you choose things from that notebook to kind of proceed forward. And because the game kind of element a lot of times is the game kind of questioning you and reviewing your understanding of the story and what's going on. So that is kind of there. Also a very strange moment where, because it will ask you to input things like by text sometimes as well,
Mm-hmm.
like oh, what do you think happened with this character, whatever, or what was whatever object that they found in their apartment, those kind of easy questions that you can answer with just generally a word. But I definitely had a moment where it was like, what did it say? How does the text ask it? It's like, uh, how it's something like, how do you feel about, and then it's kind of like blank, like, whatever, or,
Okay.
is this what you're thinking? Or, yeah, I don't know. But the answer that I was typing in was like suicide. And I was like staring at the text box and I was like, this is
What
very
the
weird.
fuck?
It's like, yeah, it was like, how do you feel about suicide? And I was like, or it
Not a
was like,
big fan.
yeah, not a big fan. It was very weird the way it was phrased. I was like, I'm like, I see what you're going for here, because this is the first time you had this text box up here. But I'm like, seems kind of like maybe we should have thought about this wording a little bit better. Like, is this the answer you're trying to type or something?
Mm-hmm.
Not like, what are your thoughts on? Like, yeah, a little different. But yeah, overall, I had a really good time with it. I hope that they do more of these.
Could
I
you
imagine
imagine
it's
if
got
you just ask someone that, like in real life, hey, what are your thoughts on suicide?
yeah. What are your thoughts
Bro,
on
that almost
suicide?
sounds like you're threatening them
Either threatening
or
them, or
yourself.
yeah, or you're kind of like, have you thought about this for yourself? Yeah, like it's strange. Um, yeah, it was kind of a weird kind of thing there, but it is kind of a thread that kind of runs through this game quite a bit for a bunch of different reasons.
Hmm.
So, the answer makes sense in the context. Like, yeah, you're talking about a lot of these things, but yeah, just kind of the phrasing for it was kind of strange. Yeah, but I think it's really enjoyable. I imagine it's got to be pretty low budget production for them. I mean, really, it's just kind of, I imagine like the brunt of their work has to really be kind of the story itself,
Hmm.
and then maybe like on top after that, maybe the graphics work. But a lot of it's kind of not quite static image, but they're not using like tons of animations, things like that. Um, and I think realistically, it's like, hey, if you wanted to do another story, you have enough elements there that's really, you could reuse a lot of this stuff pretty easily and make kind of another sequel
Hmm.
relatively easily. But yeah, I enjoy it. So hopefully they keep them coming. So um, I know the first two didn't sell like astronomical numbers like the remakes, but at the same time, like again, these are pretty low budget titles, so it's not like they have to sell multi-millions to break even. I imagine that's probably even a handful of sales probably does that pretty well. So yeah,
Hmm.
it'd be interesting to see kind of more what they do with it. Do you have any questions on it? I know I've talked about Famicom Detective Club extensively the last couple
No,
weeks.
I do not have any questions. I'll probably be trying it in the future, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I would say give it a try. Like I said, there is a demo. It gives you the prologue and 3 chapters on top of that. So it's a pretty sizable amount of the game.
But I would have
Um,
to need to play. Oh no, I don't need to play the first game. This is a prequel, right?
no, not a prequel, But I would also say that this game, each case is individual. So even though it uses the same protagonist and maybe like characters, like all other alternative characters that are kind of there,
Hmm.
the story in no way relates to the other ones, and in
Okay.
no way, as far as I can tell, spoils them.
Okay.
So I did not see anything that directly spoiled or referenced other kind of events in other games. And sometimes they'll have like some subtext there that kind of like references maybe some old cases, but it's very vague and it's not anything that would detract from this game or from the other ones. So I would say fully worth trying. And if you like it, then go back and try the other ones, because I think there's definitely reasons to do that. And yeah, the demo for this game gives you, like I said, the prologue and 3 chapters. The game overall has, not including the prologue and the epilogue, 12 chapters overall. So if you like the demo, there's still 9 more chapters and then an epilogue as well. So, um,
Okay.
and the epilogue itself, I would say, probably a decent amount of time as well. Um, it's basically almost has a couple different interactive sections, and then it basically has a movie like that kind of sums up a lot of stuff. So there's a lot going on there, but I thought it did pretty well. So yeah, I would recommend. Yeah, at the very least, try the demo if you're on the fence, because it's easy to pick up and play and get into, and it gives you a really good understanding of A, what the game is, and B, kind of what the gameplay is like. So yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
Nope. Not at
All
all.
right. All right. And then second thing I played this week that was notable, I did try out the Epic Mickey demo. And that was it was good. Actually, it was I had read someone's kind of like user like I saw like a user commentary on it, and they were like, "This is horrible." So I don't know if it set my like bar really low to go into it, because I was expecting it to be absolute trash, and it wasn't that bad. Um, it definitely has some issues. I noticed some frame rate issues myself, which again, if you listen to this podcast for a long time, I'm oblivious to a lot of them. So if I notice them, there definitely is issues. And
Hmm.
I would say the one that I had noticed, pretty obvious. But it was during a cutscene. I did not notice the same kind of lag during the gameplay, so a little bit more tolerable. Um, Game itself plays well, but it is kind of a short section. They have kind of a I would say maybe the first like 30 minutes to 60 minutes of the game, I want to say. So you get a little bit of combat, you get a little bit of exploration. It has some unlockable stuff, some cutscenes to kind of help set up the game and some understanding. It plays really well. I was kind of happy to play it again, and it was nice to see that it played really well. I played with the Pro controller, so that worked really nicely. I imagine that the it worked pretty well with the Joy Cons as well. I think the one user review that I was talking about that was like, "This game's horrible." I think they played with the Joy Cons, and one of their complaints, and I can understand it more with the Joy Cons, is that so there is an on-screen reticle for your paint and things, but it doesn't move until you're like actively using them, which if you're using a controller, more reasonable. If you're using the Joy Cons, I can understand why that'd be a little bit more frustrating. So that that can seem there, but the game does also utilize gyros even with the Pro controller, which is nice. It's something I always tend to like when games do that. And otherwise, control wise, it seemed like it was playing well. I don't know if this is going to be a day one purchase for me, because there's a lot going on here, but I think it will be something that maybe at least at some point in the next year, I'll probably will pick it up. Um, but yeah, that's really all I had to say about that. Do you have any questions on Epic Mickey?
No, I've everything I've seen from it, right? I know you said that it
Yeah.
doesn't look bad, but everything I've seen from it, in some cases, looks worse than the original Wii version, and I'm
Oh,
just
really?
like, I don't like this. Thanks, Switch, for continuing to be the Switch.
Well, that a lot of that stuff is more developers, as you know, um, because obviously if they're upgrading, like there should be room to make it look better than a 6-year-old, not a 6-year-old. When did the Wii come out? 10 years ago, at least. Yeah.
Oh, do I have bad news for you?
Well, when it came out,
Yeah,
what was what? Well, no, I'm not counting very well. It's what 2006, I think.
2006.
Yeah. So
2016 would be 10 years.
no, it would be 8 years. It's only 2024.
Sorry. 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2.
So it'd
So,
be six Plus 6 would be 12, and then plus 12 would be, so it'd be 18.
Wait, hold on. If you add 10 to 2006, it's 2016. And then you add 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Oh my god, my brain's not working. Sorry.
No, it's
Yeah,
okay.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it's 18 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope, not that recent. We're old. That's the moral of the story.
So,
So,
yeah. Well, happens.
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree though. No reason for that to be that like that.
It's funny because
Also,
I remember the first podcast I was on, and it was lore. You want to hear lore? It'll be funny.
mhm.
You know what the first podcast I was on was
What?
called?
Hmm.
It was called Wii 60.
Ew.
Yeah, it was a play off of the Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
It was basically a podcast for all things Nintendo and Xbox related at the time. Because we pretty much all unanimously agreed, yeah, there's no way we're spending $600 on a PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I ended up spending $600 on a PlayStation 3. But I actually, a little bit more lore, I actually drove into, like, not directly into, like, with the car straight through the building, but I drove into a military compound and went to their shopping mall because it was the only place anywhere nearby that had a PlayStation 3. And then I bought one at their shopping compound. That's how I ended up getting a PlayStation 3 at
Not bad.
launch. Yeah. It was really, really easy. I just had to show them my ID and tell them I'm not a terrorist. I just want to buy a PlayStation.
Wasn't there that thing where the terrorists were all trying to buy the PlayStations
This
at
was
the time?
before that came out. So
Oh.
this was literally day like month 1. So like this was before all that happened. That happened within the first year. I went and picked one up within like the first few months.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. I would say
Um,
weeks, but I want to say it was like maybe the second month. I'm not sure.
Also interestingly, kind of side note, and not related to either of the things that we were just talking about. There's a new Did You Know Gaming that came out this week, and it made me think about the conversation we had on the podcast recently because it was about game preservation, but it was an angle that I don't think we talked about specifically on the podcast. It was talking about cell phone games. It was really
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
hmm I would say, listeners out there, if that's a conversation that you enjoyed or wanted to know more information about, I'd say check out their most recent episode where they were talking about that because that was kind of cool.
Yeah, cell
There was a
phone
lot of
games
stuff I
are
didn't know.
kind of hard to preserve. It's actually wild.
Yeah, well, they were talking about how, and it's really interesting because there's a lot that have been shut down for like years. So
Yeah.
they've been importing a lot of these really old phones
Yeah,
that
I
could
heard about
potentially
this.
have it,
To
and
try
they've
to
been
find
hacking
the
them.
original
Yeah.
APK and shit like that. Yeah,
hmm
I've been seeing that happening a lot lately. I didn't know Did You Know Gaming actually picked up a story on it. That's kind of cool actually. I saw one recently where someone imported a flip phone that had the original Kingdom Hearts mobile game still installed on it.
Oh, really?
It was fucking cool too.
Yeah, they were talking about how things like, what is it? There's that one Final Fantasy game that everyone wants,
Mhm.
that's not been re-released on anything else yet. But they were saying though, when it came out in Japan, the way it was designed is the game would basically, like, once you got a new chapter, it would erase the previous one.
Mhm.
So they're importing them, hoping that you randomly find a user that stopped after chapter one, and another one who stopped after chapter two, and another one who stopped after
Oh, that's
chapter three.
actually wild. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I'm
then
like, good
I
luck with
mean,
that. That's gonna
and
be
that also
frustrating.
comes in like from like here too, because like for instance, one of Epic Games' first like major titles for next gen, quote unquote, not like previous, because obviously Epic made stuff like Gears of War and
hmm
the Unreal Tournament series and yada 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 blah blah blah. But they had Infinity Blade on iOS.
hmm
It's never been re-released, and you can't play that anymore on modern iOSs. You have to find a phone that had it installed to play the game ever again. And that game was a single player title. not multiplayer, not like anything. It's just lost
Yeah.
essentially, and it can't be emulated, and it kind of fucking sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about it before. There's that Dead Space cell phone game. I mean, that one's
Yep.
not lost forever. That one they were able to think. But same thing, you can't buy a phone that plays it now. You have to emulate it somehow. Because it's not available and they never updated it to the newest firmware, which seems like it's a silly thing. It's like, well, just fix it. But no, they just don't care. It's just too bad.
hmm
Yeah. Um, Otherwise though, that's all I got this week. I don't have anything extra.
All right, let me hop into what I played, and then
Okay.
we'll have a longer discussion about
New stuff.
our news topics. You'll have to tell me what the Wukong thing is that you were talking about earlier, because I don't know what you were going to put down.
Oh, it was about
No, hold on. We'll wait till we get the news. Wait till we get the news, and
it's
then
not really
we'll go
news,
there.
but yeah.
Well, the thing is, I might have more Wukong stuff to add. That's
Oh,
why I
okay.
was saying that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I played Astro's Playroom. Spent about 3 hours in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because recently they added more bots, which transfer over to the new Astro game that comes out on Friday. I have the new Astro game, and
Uh-huh.
would you like to hear a story time?
Sure.
All right. So I believe last time I told you the story about how GameStop scammed my brother.
Yeah.
And I think that was on the podcast. Is that
Yes, I
correct?
think it was last
Okay.
week, if I recall.
All right. So let me tell you how I scammed GameStop real quick. So I decided to go yesterday to GameStop because I pulled out my old 3DS and I went to go turn it on and everything, and I went to test it, and I tested it with a DS game, and it didn't work. Like, it just would sit at a black screen, and I would press left on the D-pad, and it would crash the main page. But if I put it in a 3DS game, it just worked fine. There's no problem whatsoever at all. Here's what I did. So that
Uh-huh.
3DS was hacked,
Okay.
but when I hacked it, I apparently misplaced a file and didn't have it in the right place, which means I corrupted the actual motherboard of the 3DS,
Oopsies.
and it will never read DS games again. So I just took it to GameStop with because it's easier to explain. It's either easier than explaining on like eBay or wherever when you're selling
Yeah.
something like that. Like, yeah, it does this, that, and the other. It's just easier just to go to GameStop and hope they don't fucking test a DS game, which they didn't. So they gave me only like $90 fucking for it, but I was like, I don't give a fuck. That's enough to buy Astrobot, so I
Yeah,
did.
it's better than a paperweight. So
So I bought Astrobot with it after scamming them out of money, essentially. So I have the new Astrobot game coming to me on this Friday, and I'm really excited for it. But yeah, I went and cleaned up the new bots. It's in Astro's Playroom, and essentially what it is when you boot up the game right now, it tells you in each one of the 4 main stages that a new bot has appeared, and they're like in a hidden place, and you have to figure out how to get them. And if you get them, then they'll be in the new game. You get them added to the new game when it comes out, if you end up buying it, or in my case, when it releases, because I already did buy it. So the 4 bots were the Bloodborne Hunter, like, oh god, what is her name? Hold on, let me just get this right. She's from the DLC for Bloodborne. Uh, Lady Maria. So it's a Astrobot based off of Lady Maria from the Bloodborne: The Old Hunters DLC. Very specific character, a very specific boss fight in that, and it was actually kind of inventive how you had to unlock them. So, for instance, it just tells you the part of the map that this character is in. It doesn't tell you how to get them or anything like that. So here's how the Bloodborne one worked. You would go into GPU jungle, and in GPU jungle, you would like move ahead just a little bit once you get in there, and there'll be a old hunter from Bloodborne also that's like swinging their sword and like attacking like the air and everything. And there's like a new plant that has been placed behind them. If you go back there and you like swat at the plant a few times, the Lady Maria bot will then appear, but she's in a glass case. You have to save her essentially. But the riddle on how to get her out was actually very inventive. You then would climb up the tree
Uh-huh.
and go to like the top of the tree trunk, and up there would be a clock. And a clock is something that is very ingrained in her character. And what you do is you stand next to the clock and press the start button. After you press the start button, you then have to input the date that Bloodborne: The Old Hunters released into the new thing that has appeared, which is like a date like thing. It like has 00000000, and you have to put like November 24th, 2015. And when you do that, it unlocks the character.
Okay.
And some of the other characters were like the main character from Returnal is in another stage, and what you had to do was you had to find first you had to find the character from Returnal, which was just overlook this area that's a new area that's been added where there's like a vortex, and it's like the vortex from Returnal that sucks people in and keeps them in an infinite loop essentially. And you have to look over at that area, and then the character would appear again in a little glass jar, that sort of thing. And then you would go to this spot where an astronaut doll is, because an astronaut in Returnal is a like main theme that continuously happens. The main character is being chased by this like basically like monster like astronaut like thing, like an apparition, like a ghost essentially, that keeps haunting them. And you don't really know the reason why until later on in the game. But you stand on top of this astronaut doll and you get yourself killed, and it resets the area of the map. And then when
Uh-huh.
you get reset in front of the person that is the Returnal person, and their glass case opens up and you get them as a bot. And there's two others. One of them is the race car driver from Gran Turismo 7, like the default race car driver.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is one of the Ape Escape like apes.
Okay.
And the race car driver, you have to find a racing wheel, and then you have to input the directions of the map for a specific map in Gran Turismo 7. And then the ape escape thing is you like open you pull up this one item from the ground, and it's actually a net, and you have to like throw it at a area that's off in the clouds, and it brings the monkey up. And then after you bring the monkey up, you have to go get some bananas and bring it to him, and then you have to do a dancing mini game with him, and that's how you unlock them. All pretty little like little kind of cryptic things, but are still super interesting and got you some new characters for the upcoming game. And I really enjoyed that. I went back and I decided, just, you know what, while I'm at this, I'm just going to platinum the whole game. So I did. And I really enjoyed my time with it. I still think Astrobot's Playroom is one of the best games on PS5. And I had a lot of fun, and I'm very excited for the new game that's coming out soon. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
there you go. I also played Black Ops 6 beta
Mm-hmm.
on Xbox Series X, and I have some thoughts on this. First of all, I like it. Like, I think it's very good. I don't think it's really grown on me yet, but the new movement system is a lot of fun, and it's very interesting what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that stands out is, are you ready for a rant real quick? Because I
Sure.
feel like I need to get this off my chest.
Yeah.
So, when I play something on my PlayStation 5, it's very easy to just stream directly to Twitch my gameplay. It's super easy. I
Uh-huh.
press a few buttons, I set it up, I say stream it at either 720p or 1080p, 60 FPS. Bada bing, bada bam, easy, done. When I also play games on my PS5, I just plug in my wireless dongle and then use my wireless headset. And it's simple. It's easy. There's no issue whatsoever. There's one thing I'll give Sony. It's really easy to get peripherals working with the PlayStation 5.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the fucking case for Xbox. And I do not know, but I can only say it has to be a product of the fact that Microsoft just does not give a fuck whatsoever about their console. I played Black Ops 6 on the Xbox Series X. I wanted to stream it so my buddies could see, me and my friend were playing it together. He was playing on PC, I was playing on Series X because it was just more convenient at the time, because when I installed it on PC, it was going to take way longer to do all the install and everything, and we kind of got a little bit caught off guard by it launching so quickly, and we didn't realize. But I already had it installing on my Xbox from a few days ago, so it is whatever. Anyway, when I went to go stream it, I noticed something. There's no option to stream at 60 FPS. It only streams at 30 FPS to anything on Xbox, period. And I can only assume this is because they went all in on Mixer, and the fact that they added Twitch in as a streaming option was an afterthought, and they care so little about the console, they haven't thought to go do the most basic of features and add them into them, which I think is definitely going to bite them in the ass, because there's no way that Call of Duty players are going to want to watch someone stream in 30 FPS. And I do think that'll bite them in the ass when the game becomes competitive, if it does end up becoming competitive on consoles, and they try to be like, we're the place to play Call of Duty, watch the stream, and blah, blah, blah. If they do that, and people are going to quickly realize something's off, and they're going to quickly get a bunch of bullshit for not having... Their console is so out of date. My PS4, base PS4, can do things that the Xbox Series X can't. That's how bad its UI is. That's how bad its system infrastructure is. That's just how awful the console is in general. I'm not talking about how it plays games, this, that, and the other. I'm talking about basic, simple things. Here's another example. I have a 7.1 surround sound headset. I mentioned earlier you can just plug and play a dongle for wireless headsets into the PS5. Xbox don't do that. You can't use a wireless headset on Xbox. Period.
Really? Nothing?
Nothing. So
strange.
I have to use a wired headset for Xbox. So I'm like, all right, fuck it, whatever. So I plug in my 7.1 surround sound headset to a wire and plug that into the controller of the Xbox. And when you fucking know it, it doesn't transfer all the audio channels over when you do that. So it crunches all the audio channels down into a stereo channel instead, and you lose the detail because the headset's designed for 7.1 or 5.1, but the controller and the Xbox itself can only output in stereo. So another very basic feature that Xbox fucks up. And I just do not get how they have gone this long and not fixed something so simple. It doesn't make any sense. Now I'll talk about Black Ops 6, because like I said, Black Ops 6, actually pretty decent game. I had a lot of fun with it. There's some really interesting ideas here. Like, for instance, when you grab a person from behind and take them hostage, your microphone then turns on and you can communicate with the person that you've taken hostage. That's fucking cool. And there's some really funny clips that have come up from that, to be completely honest. Really fucking funny clips. And yeah, it's just in general, it's doing some things that are different enough to make it feel fresh, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like a completely new experience where I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to learn a lot of new mechanics. There's some new mechanics to learn, but it's basically based on your movement, and it's very easy, and it's very well made to the point where you can learn how the movement works within a few minutes. So, and then you couple that together with old Black Ops games, and it feels natural after that, and I think it's pretty good. I think it'll be a very good Call of Duty game, barring they don't fuck it up,
Yeah.
as Activision tends to do. But they do have a great base here for something special, and I do think they could do a lot with this game as long as they don't Activision it up. So, well, that's a big ask, and I don't expect it not to happen. But there is a chance. There is a chance because the game isn't dog shit from the beginning. So that's something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my take on those two things. I enjoyed Black Ops 6. Is fun beta. It felt good with the new omnidirectional movement system, which allows you to run in every direction. Fucking cool. Yeah.
What does that
fun.
mean? Like backwards running, sidestep running?
Backwards running, sidestep running. You can sprint in every single direction.
Okay.
It's kind of neat. It's like really cool. It sounds complicated, but like once you've done it once, you then instantly get the hang of it.
I think my
cool.
question would be, does it feel like unnatural, like unreal?
It feels like you're playing an action game, and that's like the simplest way I could put it. Like think of something ridiculous like a Bayonetta or like Metal Gear Solid Revengeance and everything, and like the fast bombastic action of that, but then make it a first person shooter instead. And like that's it. So yes, it doesn't feel real, but it's fun, if that makes any sense.
Yes, that it does make a lot of sense. It's good. The important thing is it feels fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, yeah, that's good. And as long as it's like manageable, which it sounds like it is. You keep saying it plays really well, so I would imagine that's not an issue either. So
yeah,
it
no,
sounds good.
I do think that people will be able to like straight up break it like in absolutely ridiculous ways.
Oh,
and,
I'm
like,
sure.
Diving around like we're playing fucking Max Payne and whatnot. But I that's the high level play. That's going to be with any kind of competitive shooter, that sort of thing. So at the end of the day, whatever, that's cool. I don't mind that one bit. But I think like just understanding the movement, you can get it within like just a few minutes.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, totally reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Now I want to go into news, and you had something to say about Wukong, and I want to add some things. So you tell me what you were going to say first.
So there's been a lot of rumors this last week about the thing you mentioned about Wukong, about it being not being on Xbox rather.
Yes.
So because you had mentioned last week, they're like, oh yeah, it's a performance thing. That's why. So there's been some. I don't know if you've seen it. There's been rumors in both directions. Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
So because one side is like, oh no, it is a performance thing, but then you have other people who are like, no, it's definitely an exclusivity deal, and they're like, but there's no advertising. But they're like, oh no, they paid for exclusivity, but they didn't pay for advertising.
So Paul Tassi, that is the name of the person that we're talking about here, I believe.
It's been multiple people.
Yes, and a lot of people to do with IGN. I've seen a lot of this going on, and I would just say here is my main takeaway from this sort of thing, because you're saying some people are like, oh, it's an exclusivity deal. Oh, it's an exclusivity deal only because PlayStation paid to make that it would run on the PS5 and Xbox didn't pony up. And you know what? That point right there, that doesn't make an exclusive. That just makes it that Sony actually cared to get it on their system. That's what it tells me. Like they paid the money to get it running in a competent manner and get it onto their console, but that's not like paying to just get it period and keep it away from Xbox. That sounds more like I gave devs funding to help them further understand how to optimize something for our console. Does that make sense? When I kind of explain
usually
it that
kind of thing usually comes with oh, and also don't release it on another console for X amount of time.
You're 100% correct about that. But here's the other thing that I'll present is that information. Whenever something like that happens, barring Square Enix, right? Barring Square Enix, Sony shouts that shit from the rooftops. And even when it is Square Enix, that shit gets shouted from the rooftops that it is a console exclusive. And this happened with Final Fantasy VII, Remake, Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16. This happened with all of them. Even when it was like, backdoor deals, it was still shouted from the rooftops that this game is a console exclusive. That did not happen with Wukong. And that is why I think there is something else here, and I do think it's more along the lines of, because there's another thing at stake here that you need to realize. There have been plenty of devs that have come out recently that have been like, we're not releasing our games on the Xbox because and this has happened even with indie devs. They've said, because we've put in our certification information and it's been 2 months and Microsoft has refused to communicate with us. It sounds like Microsoft has a really bad fucking communication team that cannot actually competently get in touch with developers. It's happened with Capcom, it's happened with indie devs, and we've had multiple people state it. Now today, Capcom stated that they've been able to hash things out with Microsoft and get things squared away. And they are now actually going to be releasing the Marvel vs. Capcom collection as well as the Capcom fighting game collection in 2025 because they're working with someone now to get it onto Xbox. That tells me yet again that Microsoft cannot be fucked to communicate with these developers. And when you take that into account, I think that's exactly what happened with Wukong as well.
Wouldn't surprise me, especially with how Microsoft has been lately.
Mm-hmm.
They've been, I would say, with whatever reorganization they had earlier this year, they've definitely come off as a bit more disjointed than they have previously. Yeah,
you could say incompetent. You could say incompetent. I think that's a fair assessment. I think they've been entirely incompetent when it comes to communication with developers and as well as their fans. There's a few other instances of this. I don't give a shit about exclusives. You know that as well as anyone else.
Yeah.
I'd rather there not be any exclusives whatsoever, and I'd rather everyone be able to play anything on their console of choice. That is my take until the end of time. However, I want to come at this from the direction of someone that does care about exclusives, just for a second. No bias here, none of my normal bias when it comes to hating exclusives. And what I'm going to say is, about 4 months ago, when some other games were being announced to be coming to PS5, those games being Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, Phil Spencer was specifically asked, will there be any more? And his exact answer was, it won't be Indiana Jones. Literally last week, it was confirmed that Indiana Jones is coming to PS5.
Yeah.
That is just bad communication. That is just literally lying if he knew ahead of time. But I'm going to say bad communication or just, false information. It's one of the two. One of them's way worse than the other one. But yeah.
I mean, it's probably more likely they had already known about these things and had plans to announce them and just didn't want to ruin their marketing plans. But I agree.
Of course, but you do need to be upfront with people. Like you need to be upfront with people. That is the best thing you could possibly do.
Yeah, and there's wording that's probably better there for, hey, nothing to announce today. That's all you got to say.
Exactly. Yeah. I think if you are planning on in the future, but you haven't announced it yet, just saying we don't have anything to currently announce about that at this time would be the best course of action. However, he said what is literally a lie. It was a lie. It's as simple as that, the way he phrased it. And that's just another case of Microsoft's communication being fucking abysmal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think all of the companies are responsible, or not responsible. Have done this at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every single one of them have had moments like this. But I do think currently, as I've talked with other people, currently Microsoft is the champion of crushing their penis in the car door. that is where we are currently at right now.
Yeah. No, don't disagree with that at all. Yeah, I like that analogy. I think you used it recently before too. That's still good.
Yeah.
Anyways, what other news you got?
So I want to go and talk about my other news that I have here, which is about Visions of Mana. All right. Now, nothing has been 100% confirmed, but it was stated as of 3 days ago through some interviews that the developing team of Visions of Mana will be laid off. Now, here's the thing that makes this fucking awful.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be a whole story now. So the day that it was said that the development team would be laid off for Visions of Mana, at least through an interview and through what supposedly was stated, that was the day the game launched.
Okay.
On the day the game launched, there was an interview that stated the team was being laid off. They didn't even give them a chance at all, period. They didn't have a chance. Now, what was said and what led to this was that essentially Tencent, who had funded NetEase, which is the publisher of Visions of Mana, is going to be pulling back their funding on Japanese development companies. And because of that, a bunch of different companies and developers are getting axed. And the first one that was going to be getting axed was the developer for Visions of Mana. But this information came out the exact same fucking day the game launched.
Yeah, they were
That's
they were already done with it. Yeah.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
And while we're on this little trend right now, let's talk about some more stuff. There was a conversation supposedly today where the developers of Until Dawn remake that's coming to PS5 have already been laid off. The game hasn't even released yet. It isn't coming out until October, and they've already been fired.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, the layoffs are getting out of hand. I was reading, I saw Did You Know Gaming yesterday as well about Toys for Bob and kind of like their situation. And I'm like, part of me is like, well, at first I was like, well, Activision kind of jumped the gun here. But then at the second half, I was like, well, Toys for Bob definitely made some really questionable decisions themselves as well. And I feel like kind of both sides kind of contributed to that situation. But still, at the same point, if you know that this shit's not going to sell, why are you greenlighting it anyways? Like, if you're just going to be like, well, didn't sell, let's lay off the team, maybe you should have put them on something that's a little bit more, productive for what you guys are working towards. Doesn't make any sense.
But there's a difference between it didn't sell and let's lay off the team and the game released today and the game doesn't release for 2 more months, let's lay off the team.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I still agree. Yeah, but still at the same point though, it's like if you have that little faith in whatever they're putting out, maybe you shouldn't greenlit it in the first place. But I agree. Yeah, the layoffs are just ridiculous. Like I know there's more financial considerations, as a whole company, and you're not necessarily doing it, financials on a team to team basis. But yeah, exactly. Like, why would you put them through all this if you're just going to lay them off anyways? Why not put them on a project where they are more realistically going to be able to make money and finance, their studios independently?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. I agree. 100%.
It really doesn't.
No. Because the Toys for Bob thing, what they're talking about, they were like, well, Activision wasn't happy with the sales of Crash. And eventually, I guess Crash 4 did end up doing pretty well, like multi-million dollars, which you would say would do pretty well. But at that point, Activision had already kind of cut up Toys for Bob and sent them to work on Call of Duty, which obviously is not a good match for them in the first place. But
hey, if they're making the new game, they're doing pretty good. I'll just say that.
No, I don't think they are. Because what happened was during Crash's development, they wanted to do this multiplayer kind of like Crash thing. And they pitched it to Activision like 3 times.
Do you mean the MOBA that they made?
Yeah.
They made a MOBA and it was really bad.
Yep, no, that's the one I'm talking about. But they pitched it to Activision 3 times, and Activision's like, no. This looks horrible. You know what?
They had every right to keep saying that.
And so I guess then they got sent to like Call of Duty World, and then they're like, well, we hate working on Call of Duty. We're not this kind of studio. So let's repitch it again and see maybe if it worked this time. So they repitched it again. And this time, instead of they pulled out a ton of the features that made it kind of unique and, really built it on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then they're like, "Oh, it didn't sell. I'm so surprised." Um, no, it was a horrible idea. You had them tell you multiple times it's a horrible idea, and you still pushed forward with it. Granted,
Mhm.
got it. You don't want to work on Call of Duty. Totally respect that. But
You just
maybe,
make another Crash Team Racing. I'm pretty sure lots of people would buy that. That shit's
yeah,
awesome.
that would have done really well. That would have been a great idea, I'm sure. Um, or even probably, if they pitched, something, even more along the lines of stuff that they, have done really well with in the past. Kind of like those platformers, kind of more
Yeah,
Mario-esque games.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but it made a ton more sense. Not some like stupid Crash MOBA like that. I
Hmm.
just the fact that they pitched it again like the fourth time and they're finally begrudgingly like, oh, okay, I guess you could do this. Um,
And it was
it's
dog shit.
yeah, uh, I could, but also props to Microsoft because I don't know what the terms of the agreement were, but I guess once the merger went through, they just went to Microsoft and they're like, hey, can we have our independence? And they're like, sure, like goodbye, that's fine. Hey, for Microsoft, it probably was easy because they're like, well, now we don't have to lay them off. We can just be like, good riddance. Um, but yeah, it was just kind of just the. I was interested to because every time these conversations come up, I'm like, I'm always like, well, there's probably more to both sides of the story, and this definitely was one of those examples where I was like, yep, definitely not all the publisher on this one. Definitely, developer has a hand in it. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting because it was kind of relevant to what you were just saying. But yeah, that was kind of my extra thought. Sorry, back to the news.
Yeah, no. I mean, we gotta at least bring out one more developer that's had this sort of thing happen to them, and that will be the developers of Concord.
Also, Asterix, probably soon to be X Defiant as well. I,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too.
yeah, on the rumors, Ubisoft, I guess, literally was like, they have one more chance to get people playing this game or it's done.
The problem with the X Defiant, and it was a problem, right?
Mhm.
Is it was really good at the start, right?
Yeah,
But then they just didn't do enough with it to make it be a sustainable multiplayer game. Like
yeah,
here's the thing, right? You look at something like, and I'm going to choose this specifically because it's been the most sustainable multiplayer game since 2017. You look at Fortnite,
uh-huh.
right? You look at Fortnite. Every single week there is new shit being added to that
Oh
game.
yeah,
Every single week there
hmm
is new shit being added to that game. Or at least something to keep people coming back to it.
yeah.
We went like a month and a half with nothing
It's too long
from
for that kind of game.
yeah.
Like period. Like that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And once you lose those people, they're not coming back.
No,
Like
absolutely not.
yeah.
I had two buddies that spent money on the battle pass.
Hmm.
After about 3 weeks, they realized there's nothing happening. They're not doing anything with the game, and they didn't even finish their battle pass. They cared that little when there was no more content for the game being added. A month later, they added like one new character class, and then that was the last I heard of anything new being added to X Defiant.
Yeah. Not reasonable. Um, but yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry I derailed that. But back to Concord.
Yeah, back to Concord. Back to Concord. So this is a game that was in development for 8 years.
Uh huh.
It was made for, and I'm going to say this, and I 100% mean this as an insult. This
Okay.
was a game made for modern audiences,
Okay.
and they didn't show up. Um, we have the numbers. The game sold about 25,000 copies. Period. That's it.
Yeah, it's nothing.
It cost about $200 million to make.
Yep,
It
that's a big problem.
it is a really big problem. I will say, right? I will 100% give the developers and or maybe even Sony at this point props for what they're
Hmm.
doing with Concord. I do think what they've done is the most appropriate response to something like this.
Yeah.
They have decided to refund every single person that purchased the game and just take it offline as they try to figure out what's going on. They've also taken it off of sales, like you can't buy it anymore
Hmm.
immediately, and they're shutting down the servers on the 6th. So, so here's the thing. This is what you do when you have a flop. If you have something that is this bad of a flop, you don't leave that game on your digital storefronts where people can buy it and get tricked into spending money on something by other people
Yeah.
when it's already going down the drain. You don't do that, especially when it's not a free to play game. Um, I think this is probably the worst flop we've probably seen in gaming history in at least a very, very, very long time. As when it comes to price of the actual game compared to the amount of money that it made.
Yeah.
And I do also think, and again, I have to give them their props, this is the best outcome we have seen for how to handle something like this,
Yeah.
probably ever. So like for once, I can't give Sony shit here. They did the right thing. They 100% did the right thing, and I'm honestly pretty proud of them for being like, we're just going to give everyone their money back. That is very commendable.
Yeah. I agree.
This is a game that I actually played the beta of, and I
Uh-huh.
know for a fact there's no difference between the beta and the full release of the game. So I can comment a little bit on Concord. I never did before because I didn't have much thoughts about it, but having like sat down and thought about how I felt after playing the beta for like 2 hours, um, and then seeing how this was received, I think there was a big issue with Concord, and you see a lot of things like IGN being like, "Oh, hero shooter genre is oversaturated," which is true. It
Hmm.
was a $40 price tag, which again is true. But I think it goes beyond that. And I think the biggest problem with Concord, and the way I saw this described is perfect. The game Concord felt like a game you would see in a movie that isn't real. It's
Okay.
just something very generic that the studio heads think is what makes a video game, but doesn't quite understand what makes a video game.
Yeah.
That video game was Concord. It felt like a fake video game.
Hmm.
It felt like it was trying to impersonate being a video game. And it felt like something you would see in a movie where they couldn't get the license to an actual video game to put on the screen, so they just put some generic thing that they came up with. That is how Concord felt. It felt generic. It felt soulless. It was a nothing burger of a game. That's part of the reason I didn't even really discuss it on the podcast after playing it. There was nothing to discuss. It was just nothing. It was
Hmm.
not good. And it wasn't inherently bad either. But sometimes things can be so mind numbingly mediocre that you'd rather them be bad because you'd have more to say about it. And
Yeah.
that was the problem with Concord. It was so mind-numbingly mediocre and just boring that there was no point to even talking about it. And no one did, and no one bought it. And that is the reason why Concord failed. Because it was a game that was made by a bunch of studio heads that wanted to check a bunch of boxes and said, this is what modern gamers like, instead of actually looking into anything and like making something. It felt more like they were like, all right, what would a gamer like? Like something you'd see at like a fucking Five Below, where it's like
Hmm.
very obviously low quality and generic and just not very good. That's what Concord as a video game was. Concord was the Wish.com of hero shooters. And it was nothing. And it failed because it was nothing. So those are my
Yeah.
thoughts on Concord.
No, I think that's really reasonable. And I think too, actually, when you're just kind of like, just extremely mediocre, yeah, that might be fine for like a single player game. Like I think you
Yeah.
might have a little
Yeah,
bit more latitude there, but not
absolutely.
for a game that's multiplayer focused. Like it's just not gonna fly.
Exactly.
Hmm. Yeah. Um yeah. What else did you had one more news thing.
I did.
Yeah, you did them out of order.
Oh yeah. There's rumors of the PS5 Pro. coming out. So a few of the things that I've seen when it comes to these rumors are that it is supposedly has a slightly weaker GPU than a 7700 XT, which that's a pretty decent card. That's a pretty decent graphics card, about $400. But it also has better ray tracing than a 7700 XT. And when you take into account that and like take the technology, look at it from a technology perspective, that puts it around somewhere like a 4060. And a 4060 is about, let's say, 293. So a little less than $300. And after that, you could actually end up building a whole PC for the price that this supposed console is supposed to be. And
What's the rumored price?
when I hit you with it, you're gonna be like, no fucking way. Here's the rumored price.
Okay.
$700.
Like $699.99?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yep.
That's a lot. A lot. And actually, I would say it'd be one thing if you're like, oh my god, so many fucking bangers on PlayStation 5, I can't keep them straight.
I know.
It'd be totally different, but it's not. That's not the case. It's still, yeah.
I know. I still think the best PlayStation 5 game is a tech demo that came bundled with a console. The other best games that are on PS5 are also on PS4.
Well, Ratchet and Clank isn't, right?
Correct, but that's also on PC. But whatever, that doesn't matter. But we'll give them that. We'll give them that. Ratchet and Clank's really good. So is Returnal. But again, both those are on PC. And then I also think the Demon Souls remake is quite good. Not as good as the original, but still quite good. So
Okay.
You've got a remake, 2 games on PC, and then a tech demo, which are some of the best games on PS5.
Yeah.
When you look at that, you're like, this is not very good. I know people right now are shouting at me, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I got thoughts on that, and I'll share them at the end of the year. So we're not there yet. I will say this is a little aside. I don't hate Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think it's a good game. I do not think it's Game of the Year material. But maybe I'll change my mind a little bit. I don't know right now. But I do. But here's my biggest takeaway of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It feels like a filler episode. The game feels like like you watch like a TV show and you're like, oh, they're just like why did this character go to the beach on this episode? Like aren't they supposed to be selling meth or something? Just not really. Like an episode that feels out of place and doesn't do anything except fill time up, essentially. That's what a filler episode is. And obviously, Breaking Bad didn't have that, in my opinion. But I was just trying to use an extreme example.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a game you kind of experience, but not really much happens. So I don't really think it's that important to be like, oh, I need a PS5 for this. Plus, the entire series isn't over yet, and I'm pretty sure by the time all the games are released, we'll be on PS6 or we'll be on PS5 Pro, or they'll all be on PC, or maybe even perhaps Square Enix will finally start porting things to Xbox. Which who knows, because they did state recently, hey, we gotta start porting our games to other consoles and other places because this shit ain't working. And we saw that mentioned when they announced the release of Final Fantasy 16 for PC recently. So we'll see how that goes. I feel like based on how many sales FF16 makes on PC, we'll probably end up seeing a lot more Final Fantasy games sooner on PC and possibly on Xbox. I don't know about Xbox, to be completely honest, but I do know that for sure we'll probably see them on PC. So.
Well, I'm sure first, though, they'll probably go back to Sony and be like, look, give us more money.
You know what? That's fair. That's 100% fair. That seems like something that would happen.
Yeah.
You're not even wrong.
That will be step one. And then if the answer is no, oh, that shit's going to be everywhere. Everywhere. they'll be like, yeah,
A streaming copy on Switch.
yeah, Final Fantasy 17 coming to the iPhone 3.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Like we are maximizing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming out on the original PSP, like everything. Yeah, they
Gonna
will
put it
check
on
all
the
those boxes.
Neo Geo Pocket Go.
Yep. Demake on the Super Nintendo. Actually, no, N64. They're gonna make up for lost history. Like I'll show them. We don't need cartridges, or we don't need discs. We got this. Yeah, no, that it will be interesting to see how that all comes down.
But
I
yeah,
agree.
we got to go back to the PS5 Pro because that's where we were at. We got
Yeah.
super off track. So yeah, my main point, and something I've actually been sharing with a lot of people, is that it is very possible for the price of a PS5 Pro, the supposed price for a PS5 Pro, to put together an entire PC that will outdo it. And I think that it's just kind of insane that Sony potentially might be jumping into a $700 price point again for their console.
Yeah, that's not a great idea.
I don't think so either.
Especially considering too, I mean, whatever new Switch is coming out, like you know that they're not going anywhere near that price tag. And if anything, at this point, the Xbox has probably been out long enough that they might even be able to trim a little bit of their price as well.
I think
So
when the Pro gets announced, we'll have already had an announcement for the Switch. I think the Switch will be no more than $400, and I think that Xbox will just be continuously slashing prices of their console because no one wants to fucking buy it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and so it's really going to end up being Sony's going to be left to kind of sell that $700 price tag, and
So
I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
they delayed a shit ton of games from 2023 and 2024 into 2025 and 2026. So if they release those games alongside a PS5 Pro, I do think the hardcore PlayStation fans will buy it and it will sell pretty decently. And I think that if they can get it down to even $600 or $500, which I don't see happening, but if they can, one, it will smoke any PC you can build for that price.
Mhm.
Two, it will it will be a good introductory price for people that don't have a PS5 yet to just be like, oh, that's a no-brainer. I'll just buy that instead.
Yeah.
So I think right now what they need to do is take a step back and realize, yes, we do have the current market share of consoles in general, but if we want to continue our lead, maybe we don't make such an exorbitant price tag for the Pro. And if
Yeah.
they're able to do that somehow, I do think they will do really, really well with the Pro. But I think at maximum it has to be 600. There's no way this 700 supposed price tag is feasible for like them to actually have a really good showing. I don't think it'll happen. I think they'll have similar showing to the PS4 Pro, which I think only had an adoption rate of 15% compared to the original PS4, and I think it will be that much, if not less, for the PS5 Pro if they go with the $700 price tag.
I mean, I agree with you. I think $600 is much more palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they'll have a very tough time at 700.
Their smartest thing to do would be to drop the price of the PS5 that we have right now, and then make the PS5 Pro the price of what the PS5 was a few months prior. That's the best thing they could possibly do.
That's the best. They won't do that though.
They won't. That would be the best thing they could possibly do. And it would sell them a shit ton. And they've been trying to convert those people from PS4 over. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Yep. Totally not going to happen though. Maybe like 5 years down the road, they'll finally be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
I know, because they're kind of stuck up their own ass right now to the point where like they're just sniffing their own farts and loving it. And because of that, they have no competition. Microsoft is fucking failing it up right now. Like, I may enjoy some games that are on Game Pass. I may enjoy not having to pay as much for for some titles, such as Call of Duty, for instance. I don't want to pay $70 for the new fucking yearly Call of Duty when it's literally going to be obsolete by next year. But there's nothing on that console that shows that Microsoft has any faith in their own console.
No, not at this point.
So
Not after all the stuff earlier this year.
There is no reason for someone to upgrade from, say, a PS4 to a Series X. So you're not going to get those. You're not going to have that happen. And then right now, there are still so many people on PS4 compared to PS5 because the games that are on PS4 are Gran Turismo 7 and God of War Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok was such a big title. That game was so important, and they didn't make it PS5 exclusive.
Yep.
So you've got two subsects of PlayStation fans there that do not care and don't see a reason to upgrade.
Now, like we said before, one of their biggest mistakes really was by supporting both generations with the same games as long as they did. I think it would be one thing if they were still like, if they put out God of War on the PlayStation 5 and then, a different title, like something completely unrelated on the PlayStation 4, maybe, splitting development that way, but not, you want your AAA, big draw titles to, pull people in.
So here's the thing. I think because of how expensive games are now, or at least how expensive these people are like making games, because like you see, like for instance, Concord was like $200 million. That's insane. People need to pull back the budgets of these games. You don't need these hundreds of millions of dollar games. You can make something with a fraction of that budget. You can make something great with a fraction of the budget. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure it only cost $5 million to make Wukong. Wukong had 37 million players and did so well that PS5 sold out in all of China. That's insane.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't have to go to these massively budgeted games. Also, if you look at Wukong, it is one of the best fucking games I have ever seen. It looks incredible. If they could do that on 5 million, supposedly, I'm only saying supposedly because of the fact that I'm not 100% sure. I just believe I saw this. If they can do that with that kind of budget compared to the 100 million, 200 million that Sony's doing with things like Concord, what's stopping Sony from doing it other than their own, like, I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? Is it avarice? Is it like ego? What is it? What's the word I'm looking for?
I think
hubris is the word. I think that might be it. But yeah, like, what is stopping them from just being like, hey, let's just pull back and let's do this instead? Maybe we don't need to spend fucking $50 million on marketing a game because we're Sony and we already have the market share, so we don't even need to. We just put out a few commercials that play on Twitch streams and YouTube, and then we're fucking done. Sold.
I mean, you could ask that question, but the truth is, like, how many times have we had this discussion over the last year or longer? It's like, the fuck is Sony thinking with this PlayStation VR? The fuck is Sony thinking with this handheld system? Fuck is Sony thinking with
this game that sold them absolute millions, and then they fucked it all up, and it's dead within less than 6 months. What the fuck was Sony thinking? Greenlighting a game that looks like it was just made in a fucking a pitch meeting, and then they just said, "Yep, that is the perfect game," because they just took what they saw as like the thing that was in at the time, and they just put all the things in there and made it the most generic thing ever. Sony has made a lot of missteps. Not as many as Microsoft, but Sony has made a lot of really dumb missteps. I think they have had two of the biggest fumbles of this year, and that is releasing Concord, period, which cost them shit tons of money, and what happened with Helldivers 2. It's just, it's insane to think that they had a game that had millions of players and 100,000 plus daily players, and they fucked it all up just so that they could keep their shareholders happy.
Dumb.
And then now they have nothing.
Yeah, if they really wanted to drive, there are different. I was just thought about it while you were talking about it too, and I'm sure we talked about it before. But there are definitely different ways that they could have gotten people onto PSN more with their like silence if they wanted to. That would have been like a little bit more natural, not like completely piss off everyone that's ever played the game. Yeah,
Free skins, free weapon skins would not
yeah,
have been that difficult. It wouldn't have been that difficult. You can use your fucking brain. It's what they did to sell cell phones with Fortnite. It's what they did to sell fucking game consoles with Fortnite. It's what they did to sell it's not that hard. You just got to make it more natural. You don't
yeah.
have to strong arm people into it. You just got to give them a reason to do it.
It doesn't have to be that much. And actually, that skins is a good point because now that you pointed out, I actually linked my Civ 6 to 2K account this weekend because they're giving away a skin for Civ 7 if you have your Civ 6 linked to a 2K account. And literally, that's all it took. I was like, oh yeah, I should do that now. I've not done it for how many years has that game come out? Whatever. But then they just give you like literally barely any incentive to do it. And you're like, sure, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It like literally nothing.
It's not
They,
that hard. It's
no.
really not that hard.
Mhm. Yeah. So no, you can't. It's all their fault, and you can't really blame anyone else. So, yeah, I agree. Um, anything else to talk about on this subject?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think we went over a lot of stuff and we had a lot to say about this subject in general.
We did. Anything else to talk about in general?
Nah, man, I just think the state of the current gaming industry is fucked.
Oh, I
From
did have.
layoffs to the release of a game to layoffs 2 months before the release of a game, it's just fucked, man.
I just got enough. I did realize though we have next year set up to be a real banger of a year.
It
Like there's.
absolutely is. I mean, we got supposedly we've got Wolverine, which
Mm-hmm,
here's the thing. I recently saw Deadpool and Wolverine. That movie is
mm-hmm.
really fucking good. I'm just gonna
I've
say that
heard
right
it's
now.
great.
It's really good. I really enjoyed that film. I think that really kind of reignited um my enjoyment of it. Brought back what I enjoyed about Marvel films,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. Um, it made me realize, no, I'm not just stupid. Marvel films did used to be good, and they could be again. And that's how I felt about Deadpool and Wolverine, and I really enjoyed my time with it. And it
Yeah.
made me look forward to something like the Wolverine whenever it comes to PlayStation. Because here's the thing, Wolverine is a very interesting and fun character, and because of that, I do think his game can be really, really good, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, we got other things that supposedly are coming next year. I don't remember them right offhand, but I do remember that they are good. So, like, I don't know, games in 2025.
Oh,
I mean,
like
not even going for like just exclusives, but like you got the new Monster Hunter coming out, and you've got Civ 7 as you've already mentioned.
you got Civ 7. Yeah, in terms of exclusives, Pokemon Legends, the new one's coming out. Metroid Prime is coming out, and
Oh my
also
god, I'm
too.
so excited for that.
Yeah, and also too, we know like the new Nintendo Switch is coming out next year as well, which means that Nintendo is probably sitting on a fat load of first-party software as well.
I think so too. Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I'm expecting really good things for next year. I thought of it the other day, and I'm like, yeah, this is next year. Seems
So
like
I
it's be really
I typed
good.
in
Mhm.
games coming in 2025, and one of
Uh-huh.
the first results is a game called 2XKO.
Hmm.
I've had that game for 3 months.
Oh, good.
I got accepted into the closed beta for it. That game's gonna be good. It's
Oh, good.
it's a good fighting game. It's similar to Marvel vs. Capcom, but it's using the League of Legends universe characters in a fighting game. It's very good, very very
Hmm.
good. So that one's something to look forward to. There's Doom: The Dark Ages is gonna be fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, that game looks great. I forgot about that too.
Death Stranding 2. Yeah, I mean, looking at what we have here, I'm very excited for
Yeah, next year's
next
like
year.
ridiculously stacked already. Granted, some of those games might not be as good as we expect them to be. It's always a given, but generally,
Yeah.
like you don't look at the year like this far in advance and be like, okay, there's going to be a lot. So I don't know. I don't feel like at least I don't feel like I'm generally that excited for for next year this early. I feel like even when we get to like Game of the Year stuff, like in January,
Yeah,
I feel like, well, I'm like,
I
there's
think it
one,
takes a little while
maybe
for you to
two
be like,
game. Yeah. No, this next year, I'm already like, nope, I'm like, I can already almost see like my top 10 list without even having
really?
played any of them yet. Not quite the whole thing, but I'm like, I'm more than what I already see for this year, and we're already like 9 months through it. So
I think I've had some really, I played some really good games this year.
no, I mean, no, not saying there aren't good games this year. I'm just saying that next year seems like it's gonna be like, what was that really good year of gaming we had? Kind of like, it was like the Wii 360 generation, where it was like an insane year.
Oh,
I
the
think it
one that
was like
had like
2008.
the
It
one
had
that
like
had like
Mario Galaxy, like
it had Mario Galaxy, Halo 3.
yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think that was when BioShock premiered also. Yeah,
I
that
think one of the Assassin's Creeds came out that year.
yeah.
Um,
No, I don't know if we're gonna get that level of things, but it is possible because there's a lot coming next year, and I mean a lot. We got a new Professor Layton, we got Pokemon Legends, we've got new Monster Hunter, Wilds. We got. I'm looking at this. Like I'm looking at the list. A new
mhm.
Fable, supposedly. Um, we've got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which looks excellent. Death Stranding 2. Doom: The Dark Ages, one of my personal favorites, and one I'm looking forward to a lot. GTA 6 is next year, supposedly, so that's insane. To
Yeah.
think that I made it to GTA 6 is fucking wild to me. Because I was thinking, right? I actually had this conversation with someone recently. I was like, I'm probably just gonna buy GTA 6 on console and then wait like a year and then get it on PC, or like wait a year or so or whatever, and then get it on PC. And I'm gonna play the single player on console, and then I'll play everything else as more stuff is added when the PC version comes out and it's more complete and it's a better experience. And then I wrote, just like I did with the Xbox 360. And then I thought to myself, holy shit, the last GTA was on the Xbox 360.
Yep.
They've just re-released it as many times as fucking Skyrim at this point.
Yep.
That's insane.
And they kept it new and fresh with the online stuff. Um,
Uh,
yeah.
that's just insane to me, dude. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. I guess because they've kept GTA in the public eye, like GTA 5 in the public eye, through many different ways for so long, either through the modding scene, through adding the more stuff like you said, through GTA roleplay, which has really taken off even lately. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So next year's gonna be a banger. Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. Let's not count the chickens before the eggs
Well, I'm
hatch.
counting them. Next year's gonna be amazing.
I
So
can't do it because I thought I've been burned too many times. So I'm just gonna like temper what's the word I'm
temper
looking
your
for?
expectations.
Temper my expectations. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
see. I'm sure Metroid Prime and GTA 4 and Pokemon Legends and Civ 7.
Four,
I'm sure
bro,
they'll
what
all
are we
be
doing? Going back in
trash.
time? You mean 6?
Metroid Prime 4?
You said GTA 4?
Oh, maybe I did. I thought I said GTA and then
No,
Metroid Prime 4.
Metroid Prime and GTA 4. Like they're both the fourth one in the series.
Hey, possible. It is possible.
Yeah,
We'll
remastered
catch it
GTA 4.
on the
And then they
re-listen.
they delay no, I mean I know for a fact you said it. But yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. I mean, they could remake it. Who knows? We're past them.
Suikoden win 1 and 2 is next year.
Mhm.
Ah, fuck, I'm excited. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I know you're a big Fire Emblem guy.
Mhm.
I know it's not the same gameplay style, but look at the game, the new Rune Factory game, Rune Factory Gardens of Azuma. That
Mhm.
shit looks good and reminds me so much of Fire Emblem because of like the way they're building the factions and whatnot.
Yeah, I'll take a look. Anyways, you ready to wrap up?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us tonight. Don't forget you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Game-crunch.com has all of our old episodes, and if you want to reach out to us, you can send us an email, gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Brandon.
Yep.
Any final thoughts?
Sony has one option right now after this massive flop. They have a break in case of an emergency glass case, and all they have to do is break it and release it, and then they'll make all their money back and more easily. It's gonna give us a remaster of Bloodborne. As simple as that. Put a PC version out, put a remaster out, you fucking golden, Sony. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do. It's about to be Tokyo Game Show week in about another week. The rumor has been for the last 2 months that there is a remaster of Bloodborne that's been in the making. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've seen that rumor posted for the last 2 months.
Yeah. Definitely a real thing.
Now is the time. Now is literally the fucking time. If you want to get good graces back, you just got to be like, so anyway, Bloodborne, and then all is forgiven. It is literally all you have to do. So that is where I stand right now.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm being, I don't know, pedantic might be the word I'm looking for. Whatever the fuck the word is, where you're just being like overly, like praising something, like being like, oh yeah, I'll definitely just fucking lick your boots if you do this thing. I'm not actually going to, but I do think that they would do really well if they released a PC and remaster of Bloodborne. I do think it would sell a shit ton.
I would be surprised if it was not a real thing.
I mean, the thing is, a lot of people are like, would it actually sell? And I think coming off the heels of fucking Elden Ring, and the fact that I honestly think the best game I've played this year so far is a DLC that I paid $40 for, and a lot of other people agree as well. And the fact that Elden Ring has reached so many people that people have gotten interested in other Souls-like games, bringing back Bloodborne right now at the height of this is probably it would sell just easily.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. You're right. It's a good time to do it. Well, especially considering too, there's not a lot of other stuff out there. So maybe it will be for the PlayStation Pro. Yeah, I don't.
I don't give them any ideas. Start making exclusive games only for the Pro. That would be the dumbest shit ever.
It's Sony. They will.
I was gonna say that's why they're absolutely gonna do it.
Yep, exactly. Anyways, that's it. My name is Mike Anastasia. You can find me online on Clash of Penguin there or on your favorite gaming console. Until next week, game on.
Game on.
Little toys on the shelf, they shine. Collector's dreams in plastic so fine. Tap them once, the magic's here. Amiibo, bring them near. Mario jumps and Link's got gear. Animal Crossing friends appear. Each one brings a story bright. Amiibo, light the night. Tap the figure, watch them go. In my game they steal the show. Every world from here they grow. Amiibo, magic starts to flow. Deep in dungeon or racing fast, these little toys, they're made to last. Memories from days of old. Amiibo, stories told. Touch the base, the game's alive. Each moment big, they arrive. Sky and sea and land we see. Amiibo, set them free. Tap the figure, watch them go. In my game they steal the show. Every world from here they grow. Amiibo, magic starts to flow. Deep in dungeon, goes and go. In my game they steal the show. Every world from here they grow. Trust the flow.
All right, I'm ready whenever you are.
I am ready as well.
All right, let's go. I gotta turn
Thank
down
you,
my TV.
everyone.
Hold on. Sorry. My TV was still loud. I didn't realize it. Let me just turn it down. My bad. All right, we're good now. We're good. Sorry
All right.
about that.